Most of the time, the machine just wants to beat people up, rob them, rape them, take their property. Most of the people that are being abused will have nothing to do with the real boogeymen.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And it reached the point where the secret police and the Soviet Union, in order to prove their loyalty, had to find more and more enemies of the people. And what they would do, they would engage in what were called street sweeps. They would just go out in the street and arrest everybody in the street and take them in. And that's how they fill these labor camps with tens of millions of people.
Stay there. Let's talk about this more, because I have an article where a guy was selling biscuits delivery, and the police did a sting because his license wasn't right. And so there's just the tyranny. One day we will all be terrorists. Coming up the next segment with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, we're going to get into the economy, and I'm going to open the phones up specifically for our guests with questions on the economy. 1-800-259-9231 as we close out the year with our regular guests, the great minds that agree to come on this show and share their researched knowledge with us. 1-800-259-9231. Okay, Dr. Roberts, again, I mean, we know what real hardcore tyranny is, and the Soviets, the Nazis, they always had great excuses for why they were secretly arresting people and torturing them, and now they're going to put different people on trial who've been held 4, 5, 6, 7 years in some cases. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, they admittedly threatened his family, admittedly tortured him. Now that's admissible. He confessed to bombing buildings that weren't built till 3.5, 4 years after he was arrested. He might as well have confessed to killing Jesus or shooting at the Ford Theater, President Lincoln in the back of the head. I mean, this is really happening. And then you look at the Soviet parallels, reading the letters from Lenin, the orders, where they would say, sir, we've arrested half of this town, 30% of this city. What do we do? And he just said, more. It's terror. We want to scare everyone. More blood. You've probably seen those quotes, but, I mean, these people are just nuts.
Well, they're evil. And as I said, and I think it's clear, there's no difference today in the legal rights of an American citizen and a Soviet citizen under Joseph Stalin. Neither one has any rights. All your rights can be turned off simply by the government using a few words. They can say you're something you're not. And in fact, they don't even really need to do that anymore. And so we have no rights. There's no doubt about it. And to change the subject before we get to the economy, really quick, did you see that report from the pilots for 9/11 Truth? That Flight 77, they got the information from the Air Transportation Safety Administration, or whatever it's called, that the black box that watches the pilot's door every 4 seconds reports that it was never opened during the whole 90 minutes of the alleged hijack. And, you know, the official story is that the hijackers forced the pilots out to the back of the plane and all that. This is the one that allegedly ran into the Pentagon. And now we have the black box that says that the door was never opened. So how did they take over the plane?
And the pilot of that plane was the guy a year before taking part in drills of flying a hijacked jet into the Pentagon. Then his daughter spoke up, and she got firebombed to death in New Jersey. And then the plane did maneuvers that were physically impossible for the airframe. Yes, I'm aware of that. We need to get the pilots for 9/11 Truth on about that issue. That's confirmed they got that. But I guess frauds don't matter, do they?
You see, no one pays any attention. It's amazing. I mean, you would think that Congress would be saying, how could this be? And we got to have this investigated, or somebody, you think, would say, how could this be? But nothing happened. So it's more evidence that essentially the situation in the United States is out of control, and there are no rights, and they do what they want. They can say whatever they want, no matter how absurd, and people don't seem to be able to muster any interest to stop it. So,
and And the establishment is geared up, wanting a 1776 response, with Northcom wanting to have a war with the people. But I think more and more it's clear that we have to try to get the country back peacefully, but that we can't be drug off to FEMA camps. I mean, I guess, I mean, George Washington said, better the entire continent be drenched in blood than we live as slaves.
Well, I agree with that, but I don't know what the American people will do. They probably won't catch on until it's too late. You know, the Soviets didn't catch on until nothing could be done. So maybe the economy's collapse will save us. Who knows? Maybe the dollar's collapse might save us. If the crowd in Washington loses its economic capability because the dollar goes, then maybe that will be our salvation.
Well, I know I'm evil for quoting George Washington. I have the FEMA training manuals and footage of the Founding Fathers being demonized to Kansas City police by FEMA. And I'm not calling for this, folks, but Washington said, I don't want violence. But he said, you know, it seems the only thing a virtuous man can do is say that when faced with this, the only decision you have is to fight. And we are fighting to warn the people. We may be able to turn this around. We had victory over the Copenhagen fraud. We'll talk about the economy with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts on the other side. Very honored to have him. Stay with us.